Hello, I'm Stacy from Stacy Creates Stuff, and today I'm going to talk to you about the hexagon. Perhaps you're new to English paper piecing, but it is a stitching method in which you use a template, often a hexagon, but not exclusively, to create things like flowers. And you can see this is made up of 6 hexagons around a 7th one in the center. And this is a hand stitching project, so it's great for traveling, sitting in front of the TV, but essentially you baste the paper template. It's actually cardstock, so it's a little heavier than paper, but you baste that to a piece of fabric, and then you whip stitch them together. Now I've removed the paper from the center here now that it is surrounded by its little buddies. You can make entire quilts with hexagons in all sorts of fascinating patterns. But what I'm here to tell you about today is how you can use your Cricut or Silhouette or other cutting machine to make the hexagons. It's a lot easier than you think because it's built in to your software for your cutting system. At least it is for the Cricut. That's what I have. But I am sure that Silhouette's Space and the other, I think Brother has a cutting machine, that they have the ability to make a hexagon shape, just built right into the shapes. So let's take a look at the Cricut Design Space and see how easy it is. And also to understand what is the difference between a 1-inch, 2-inch, or smaller. So commercially, you can buy hexagons in certain sizes, but if you need your own size or you just want to make little teeny tiny ones, you can do that because you can totally control how big you make them. So I'll explain all that when we get into the Cricut Design Space. I have opened up Cricut Design Space, and there is a hexagon built right into the shapes. You don't even have to draw a hexagon. So all you need to do is go over on the left to the menu, click on Shapes, and there is the hexagon. And if you're unsure of which one's the hexagon, if you hover over it, it will say hexagon. So there's also a pentagon and an octagon, triangles, and all that good stuff. But we're going to do a hexagon. So I'm going to just click on hexagon, and there it is. Now, how do you determine how big you want your hexagon to be? Because I have seen hexagons sized 2 different ways. One is by the length of one of the edges. Well, all the edges are the same length. In this particular case, they're 1 inch. I'll explain why I know that in just a moment. You can see that it says that this shape here is 2 inches wide by 1.73 inches. And I know that math can be scary for people, but have no fear. This is super simple, I promise. This is a 1-inch hexagon because the radius, so from the center outward to the point here, is 1 inch. And it's 1 inch from the center to each of the points, which means that if it's 1 inch from the point to the center and another inch from the center to the other point, the width is 2 inches. 2-inch width is just double of what one side is. And now it has to do with equilateral triangles. A hexagon is made up of 6 equilateral triangles. Equilateral meaning all 3 sides of the triangle are the same, which means that from the center to the edge is 1 inch. That's the center to any of the points, I should say, not to the edge, but from the center to a point. So there's two pieces right there that are 1 inch. And because it's an equilateral triangle, this outer edge is also 1 inch. So this is what I consider to be a 1-inch hexagon. Even though it measures 2 full inches across, the radius is 1 inch and any flat edge is 1 inch. This is the size that you commonly see in hexagon quilts. But of course, you can make them whatever size you want. So I'm going to duplicate this just so you can see. And if I wanted to make a hexagon that was 3/4 of an inch, then you would think, oh, now I have to figure out how do I do that? How do I shrink it down and make sure it's the right way? Well, remember that from the point, this center point here, to the center of the hexagon, we want to make that 3/4 of an inch, which means that from the center to this other point is also 3/4 of an inch. And that would mean that the total width needs to be 1.5. That's 3/4 plus 3/4, or 0.75 plus 0.75 equals 1.5. So because I have the size locked, that means that if I change the width, it will automatically adjust the height. So I'm going to type in 1.5 and tab that over. So now that is a hexagon that has a 3/4 inch edge. Likewise, let me duplicate that again. I'm going to change the colors here so we don't get confused. We'll just make that one pink. So if I wanted to make a 1/2 inch hexie, then 1/2 inch plus a 1/2 inch is 1 inch. I'm just going to tab that, and I'll just change the color of that one too. We'll make that one a kind of a red. And there you have it. And of course you can cut these out. Now, ideally, you want to cut out a whole sheet of them. So there's a couple of different things that you can do. I personally like to lay out my hexagons and try to fill up a sheet of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and hide our two little hexies. All right, so I'm starting with one hexagon, and I'm going to duplicate that. And I am going to come down here on a bit of an angle with a little bit of space in between. Doesn't have to be a whole lot of space. And I'm going to duplicate those two. I'm just duplicating them together because it makes it a little bit easier. And that should give me enough to fit one more right here at the top. Now, if you want, you can select all the top ones and align those along the top so they're all the same height. And you take these two and you could align those also along the top. They're the same height. And now you have a full row. And you can double check that Cricut is going to cut this by selecting all of them and checking your width. So I have these currently at 8.25. I'm going to be using an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. It will cut it. If it bulks about it, then just tell it you're cutting on a 12 by 12 and just make sure that you have your paper aligned. So we'll see what happens. All right, with all 5 of those selected, I'm going to group those. It just makes it a little bit easier. And then I'm going to duplicate the group. And I'm going to stick those right there. Duplicate again. Duplicate again. Let's see where we are. Oh, I think I can fit some more. And if you're using 12 by 12 cardstock, then you have room to put even more. And let's do one more. Okay. Now these last two are past the 11-inch mark, and I have a little tiny bit of room at the top. So I am going to ungroup that and just delete these two guys. Oops. And then if you want, you can select everything and align. You don't really have to align them. I just like them aligned. All right, now I have all of that. Let's zoom out here for a moment. There we go. I'm going to select everything and I am going to attach it. And that just means that it is one entity, but not welded together, not welded or combined. It's just Cricut will think of it as one group. All right, now we're ready to make it. So I'm going to click on make, and you see it defaults to a 12 by 12. It is not giving me an 8.5 by 11 choice. So sometimes I do 9 by 12 and it seems to be happier with that. But that gives us quite a number. That gives us 28 Hexies, which is great. Let's go ahead and cut this out. You can see here that I made sure I lined my paper up right along the top and on the side there with the lines of the mat. And I'm trying to hold the mat from going off the table and hold the phone at the same time. So there we go. We've got it set up. I am using 110-pound cardstock. It's just cardstock you can get any office supply place. It's not any kind of specialty cardstock. I'm just using white. You could use whatever color you wanted. I don't recommend a super, super heavy cardstock because you're going to have to be putting a needle through it. So you want it to have some stiffness, but not be like chipboard type quality. Looking over here and I'm using my camera to film my screen, so sorry about that, but I usually just do the medium cardstock. Seems to be fine, even though it's 110-pound paper. Pressure default is good for me, and I'm ready to go. So let's hit the button and watch them cut. Looks like my end ones might just be right off the paper, but you know what? It's okay. I probably should have moved my paper over a little bit more in this direction, but they're still be usable. You can see I just made it to the edge, and they're usable. I did not cut off that point on the side there, so they're all good. I'm just going to put them all in a baggie and be ready to make some grandmother's flowers. Now that you're able to churn out as many hexagons in whatever size you need, then great, it's time to start English paper piecing. But this video is not about that. I'll tell you that I have a video coming out in just a couple of days that is going to take you step by step on how to create this flower, all from 7 hexagons. So make sure that you are subscribed, like this video, hit the notification button, and you'll know when that next video comes out. It is part of my Block of the Week series, so there are other blocks involved, but this week I am going to be talking about English paper piecing. Hope to see you then. Bye.